In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 Oracle decks of 2021. So if you're interested to see what decks made the top of my list for 2021, then do keep on watching. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope that you're well and safe and looking after yourselves. So I have a confession to make. This is not the first time I have filmed this video. So I filmed the video, and when I went to edit, I noticed that the first half of the video had been corrupted. The file had changed into some kind of data file, and I've had this happen once or twice before with my camera. I don't know why it happens, but sometimes it just does. So I lost that part of the footage, and I have the end of the video that I've already filmed. So the first part I am going to refilm now in these clothes, and then you're going to see I'm going to change and it's going to go back in time, and you're going to see it at the end of the video. So apologies for that, but get a little costume change halfway through. Anyway, let's just get right on into my favourite Oracle decks of 2021. So the first deck on the list is one I picked up quite recently, and it is Soul Cards by Deborah Croft Chapin. And I've wanted this deck for so long, but I just never got round to it, and I kind of felt a little intimidated by it, in all honesty. I also really wanted to get the red seeds. I felt like they were quite similar in nature, but I don't have the red seeds yet. It's still something I would like to get. However, this deck, it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous deck, and I've been working with it in December mainly. So I picked it up towards the end of this year, and it feels like whatever card I draw, I get like this instant download and this instant knowing, and it very much speaks to the moment, like the way I feel. I've used it to answer questions for myself. I've used it with some tarot decks. I've used it with the Tuatha De Danann tarot, which arrived very recently. I've recently started using those together. I've also used it with the Botanica tarot by Kevin J. Stanton. You wouldn't think that they'd necessarily work or pair well together, but they absolutely do. And I like that this deck, because there are no keywords or anything, you really can just scry with them. You can feel into them. They're really powerful. I think you could use these with the Yoni cards as well, and yeah, so beautiful, this sort of Gaia and Mother Earth energy, you know, and you can really feel things coming up, rising up as you work with this deck. So again, like a really beautiful, resonant kind of deck that just absolutely adds so much depth and meaning to readings. I still really want to get the Shimmering Veil tarot, that's Silicon Way, and I really feel like these would work beautifully together as well. So hopefully that will be on the cards. I always say that, it's like the stupidest, and I don't mean it as a pun, but I hope that that will be coming into my life at some point soon in 2022, and I think that these two will work really beautifully. So this has been such an amazing deck to bring into my collection, and I don't know why I slept on it for so long. I think I was just a little bit intimidated, in all honesty, and now working with it, it's like there's nothing more natural, nothing easier, you know, because it's just so intuitive, and you could just deep dive right into the cards. So expansive, so beautiful. I absolutely love this deck. I would definitely be picking up the second lot as well, perhaps not this year because it's not really a priority if I've got one of them, but definitely wouldn't mind getting both and making one super deck, you know. I love this deck. I've got it out on my reading table at the moment, and it's kind of reading table semi-altar space at the moment over there. But yeah, that is sort of a temporary thing at the moment, but it's where I'm reading my cards anyway daily, and this is what I'm using at the moment. I have them out, and I'm loving them so much. So that was Soul Cards. So next up is a favourite from last year as well, I believe, and this is the Yoni Oracle cards, Embody Your Lunar Nature by Georgina Caitling. And this is such a gorgeous deck. The cards are really big. They're beautiful to use as altar cards. It was an independent deck, so I ordered it from the website itself, yonioraclecards.com, and it comes with a book, and it comes with a little beautiful notebook as well. So you can use this for explorations, which is beautiful. I haven't actually used this yet. Maybe I might like to use it for some of the womb work that I've been working on recently. I love this deck because the womb is an area that I am doing constant healing with. The womb and the yoni is something that I do have to do a lot of work with. I recognise I am a cisgendered woman, but I do feel like this is a deck that you can work with even if you didn't have a yoni or a womb, but you're working with those energies. I don't believe that there's any reason why one couldn't work with this to work through healing in those areas as well, and to work through cycles of their own for LGBTQI+ communities. For me, having 2 children and having experienced sexual violence, assault, I do feel like this is work that I need to do on an ongoing basis. And yeah, it's work that, you know, is for my soul. And I think doing my Reiki practice has really been supporting me through this. Meditation and shadow work as well really supports me with this. Definitely artwork supports me with this as well. This crone absolutely reminds me of Sheila Nagig. It's, yeah, incredible. And this, I actually discovered an artist the other day, and I can't remember exactly what her art is called. I'll try to remember to link it below. It was on Instagram, and it's Yoni art or something, and flowers, a bit like Georgia O'Keeffe's work. It's so beautiful. I love it. But this is definitely a deck that resonated for me and still very much does. And working with this deck has brought things out for me, which, you know, needed to come out. It's just been a really, really powerful, intense deck to work with. So I absolutely love this deck. It will continue to be a really, really important part of my practice, whether or not I'm using it all the time or not. I constantly come back to it and pick it off the shelf and work with it. You know, I might just pull a card on an evening and journal on it, or I might keep one out and ruminate on the meanings, or I might just look at the image and, you know, feel things coming up, you know, and meditate with the image. It's really, really beautiful, really, really powerful deck, and I love it. So this is still one of my favourite Oracle decks, and definitely a favourite for 2021. So a deck I picked up earlier this year because I love the DRUID, I love working with the Wildwood, and I loved working with the Hedge Witch Botanical Oracle as well. I had to have the Druid Plant Oracle, and this is Lib and Stephanie Cargom, illustrated by Will Worthington. Will Worthington also illustrated the DRUID and the Wildwood, so the imagery just goes really, really beautifully. And I found that as I was working with different plants that I would encounter in my garden and in the wild throughout the year, I would refer to the cards and also to the Herbcrafters Tarot, which I love, and I would use the information from the books as well as my knowledge and correspondences, and then from the Hedge Witch Botanicon I would sort of work on all of the correspondences together to build up a picture, and I would do a sketch and then make notes. One of my journals, Books of Shadows, I have a few. It was just a sketchy little book, but I really, really enjoyed that process because I felt like I was connecting with the plant spirit, and borage was a really, really magical plant to work with. I found it so beautiful and like celebratory, which I loved. And then sadly the borage plant that was in our front garden, this is our old house, not where I am right now by the way, there were gardeners who used to garden the land and they just got rid of it, and I was like, okay, that's my garden, you just like dug up my borage, thank you very much. So that was kind of sad. This has been gorgeous, and I just continued to work with it. I had a bit of a break working with it. The guidebook is fantastic, and you get these other cards as well if you want to include some of your own plants that you encounter. I mean, it's kind of glossy cardstock, so I don't know how you'd draw them on there, but somehow if you wanted to use a marker you could do a sketch maybe. But I've not done that. But I really, really did enjoy this deck, and I think it's beautiful. I will continue to work with it as well, obviously because it's Druid plants. They're very, very connected to the flora of where I live. So this is the book that you get, and the illustrations are gorgeous, and they have really like lengthy descriptions. So it has upright and reverse meanings and then details about that within. Great deck if you're interested in herbs and herb crafting, and you know, the Celtic tree ogham as well, because although it's not ogham trees necessarily, they are sort of connected, and that's really nice. So this has been great. Next up is a deck that I also picked up this year, and again another one that I kind of snoozed on for ages because I thought I don't really need that, but then I kept seeing it and thinking, gosh, this is just beautiful. And it's because the art in it was collage, but it was used from sort of older art, and it's the Vintage Wisdom Oracle by Victoria Moseley. And I just think there's so much power and intensity in this deck, and I think, you know, I was kind of fooled by the deck into thinking that it was like really delicate and gentle, and so I was using it on an evening. You know, you've got these beautiful cards, beautiful messages, but then I'm sure like there were a few nights when I got a few cards that were just a bit sharp with me. Can't remember, I'm not sure if it was this one, but like this is an example, discernment, and it was just a little bit like, huh, and I don't know what it was about it. It was just, it had an attitude, maybe it's just with me, but that I didn't expect it to have, because I was thinking, here, look, it's so lovely, it's got all these lovely messages. I don't think it's quite as, you know, gentle as that. It is gentle because of the imagery, but I think you've got some bite there with it. And definitely if you use it alongside a tarot deck as well, I think you're going to find that you get some really interesting meanings that can probe and poke at things. That's just my experience though, you know, other people might have completely different experiences of this deck, but that's how I've found it to work. I think this deck could work really well with the Dream Keeper's Tarot and the Tarot of Mystical Moments as well. It's got that kind of like out of this world, ethereal sort of, you know, feel to it. So really enjoyed this deck. And because it's mass market, you're not spending too much on it. I think it's really, really good for sort of autumnal readings, as well as like, it's all through the year really, anytime, but really, really nice for autumnal readings, I found. So this has been one of my favorites for 2021. Next up is a deck that I discovered because Hazel Jane Tarot featured it on their channel, and it is the Sacred Island Celtic Moon Oracle Daily Guidance Oracle cards. And I love this because not only does it have like the moon cards on it, which I have quite a lot of moon cards, moon tarot cards and moon oracle cards. You know, I have the moon deck, which I love, and I think last year that might have been on my favourite oracle cards list. So there's a bit of a bend to this, it's sort of bowing, I don't know really why. But not only has it got different phases of the moon, I'm just trying to find different moon phases and then the different moons, so this is the hunter moon. But it also has then different goddesses and also different sacred sites. So in this deck it does have a depiction of the Morrigan, it also has a depiction of Macha, it has some sacred sites to the Morrigan as well as some other goddesses as well. So it's a lovely, lovely deck to work with if you're interested in Celtic lore and mythology and work with the Dagda or Brigid or the Morrigan. So here is the Hill of Tara, here is the Morrigan and renewal. Here's an example of the half moon, so it's balance. So for each of the moon phases you could use this as altar cards, or you can also use it in a divinatory way, which is lovely as well. There's the goddess Brigid. And there's the festival, so Lunasa, Celtic festival. There's the Cailleach, wisdom. There's the goddess Bowen. Very pretty depictions of the goddesses. There's Danu, nurture. Newgrange, sacred site, alignment. Here is Rathcrocken. This is known as the Cave of the Cats, and it was one of the Morrigan's sacred sites, and actually a site connected with Samhain as well, so this is otherworldly. This is a main Macha, sacred site. So it's interesting, when I first started working with the Morrigan years and years ago, I had a meeting with the Morrigan in a guise, and I believe it was Macha. But it happened in a place, it was a hill that looked very much like this, and this is before I knew anything about the Morrigan. And when I started reading about Macha, then I thought that's exactly what I saw. I mean, I don't think that what I saw looked exactly like this depiction here, but the way that Macha was described, it was exactly what I'd experienced when I saw and connected with the Morrigan for the first time. And that's before I really knew anything about the Morrigan, so I was just like, when the penny dropped, I was like, oh my gosh. So I actually would love to do a video more about how I've worked with the Morrigan over the years and my connection and how that started and different books and things. So that's something that I would like to share. So, you know, if you would like to see that, if you've got any questions that you want me to answer during that, do leave them in the comments box below. And I am actually trying to get to the comments. I know I'm so behind and I'm so sorry, but I will get to them, I promise. The goddess Macha is power. But yeah, this is just a glorious, glorious deck, and you can see why it resonates so deeply for me. And yeah, I absolutely love Hazel Jane Tarot's channel as well. So if you're not following them, then do go over, check out their videos because they're fantastic. And I love this deck. So grateful that I heard of this deck through Hazel Jane Tarot. So the Sacred Island Celtic Moon Oracle. And now I'm just going to give you a little cheat, and it is a deck that I've shared before, and it's an extra in this because it's a deck that is only mine and I could never recreate it for anybody else, and it is my Morrigan Oracle deck. And I created this deck myself, I channeled it several years ago, and when I say I channeled it, it wasn't like that. I wasn't like setting out like, oh, I'm going to channel this. It just happened. I'd collected quite a lot of art to do with the Morrigan. I was working on some of my own art as well, and then during a ritual I had all of these epithets and words, keywords sort of come through me, and I just wrote them all out. I woke up from some powerful dreams as well with a few more, and it's like they just kept coming, and within like a few days I had all of those. And when I sort of looked at the images, they all just sort of clicked into place. So this one is boundaries here. And I have used this deck a lot. Whenever I do want to commune with Morrigan and ask for guidance, I pull this out and maybe use it with a tarot deck as well. I have used it with the Transformational Oracle of the Morrigan as well. And this deck has just been so, so powerful. And I know it's kind of annoying that no one else can really have this. So I would potentially like to work on creating a deck that is all completely images that I have found that are free to use. Because I know that these images are free to use for home use, but there are a few in here that I think can't be reproduced and then sold. So what I would like to do is like check all the images, make sure, and then replace any. I also did include some that were blank as well, and I think that's because I had so many keywords that just come through and not enough images, and I thought, well, you know, the blank space speaks for itself really, and I could always add images myself. And that's one thing I would love to do, is create my own tarot deck or oracle deck. I'm not a professional artist, and it would take me absolutely like a lifetime to create a deck like this, and to this standard I couldn't. But I have started creating a tarot deck that is just in sketch point at this moment, and I've not finished creating all the cards or anything like that. I'm literally just working my way through the majors, and it would probably take me years to finish, but like sketching them all, and then I'm either going to do watercolor or I'm going to invest in some kind of digital art program to color them digitally. But at the moment they're starting with pencil, and yeah, I've really enjoyed the process so far. But definitely there's a few cards that I've done several times because I wasn't happy with the depiction, and working through to make sure that, you know, I'm doing it justice, I guess. But that's not something that I'm doing for other people. It's something that I started to do for myself, and to finish it I probably would have to put on my cap that says this is going to be something you do now, so that people can also share in it. But up until this point it's just been for me. So that is something that I think I would love to be able to do in my lifetime. It's just I think I need to be able to do it in a time when it's not like as busy as this, you know, being a mum of two and, you know, working and looking after a house and school runs and everything. It's just really intense, and there's just not a lot of time for anything else. And so with the YouTube channel and everything, like, it would have to be a time when I have a little bit more time to dedicate to art. And, you know, my daughter absolutely loves art, so what we're doing at the moment is time spent together doing artwork, so that's an option. But yeah, big segue and a little bit of a cheat, but you know, potentially if there's enough people who want to get their hands on something like this, that could be something I could put some energy towards later down the line when I've got some more energy. I could go through, make sure all the cards have got found art that is royalty free and free to use, whatever the terminology is, free to use for reproduction and to sell. As I know lots of people do it, lots of people have done it, and I'd love to do that. So if there's a demand for it, then yeah, maybe I'll do that. But for now, it's for me, and it is a favourite. It will always be one of my favourites, and so it's in this list even though it's not technically included because you can't buy it and it's mine. Or mine. Definitely think I should do a VR to Sylvain, and this would probably be in it, but again, it's a cheat. So it really just is for me, but I think I couldn't not include it because it is one of my favourites and top oracle for me. So that's my one cheat and my one extra deck, and that is my Morrigan Oracle cards. So now I'm going to include the rest of the footage from the first time I filmed. So I'm going to say goodbye to you right now, and you can continue watching the rest of the video from the original footage, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Mwah. Did I also say that these decks aren't in order? But they're not. Next up is the Earthly Souls and Spirits Oracle. This is by Terry Foss and Sarah Robinson. This is a deck as well that I wanted for years, and finally I picked it up this year, and I'm so glad that I did, because this is one of the last print runs of this independent version of the deck, because it is going to go to mass market, which is amazing, and I'm really pleased to know that. If I'd have found that out, I don't know if I'd have gone for this, but I am actually really pleased that I did anyway, because to have this as an independent deck is just so lovely. So I found this such a magical deck to work with. The messages are really beautiful and profound, very soft and gentle, and just a really beautiful deck to work with, sort of like as a bit of a hug deck, to be honest with you. It feels very magical, very spiritual, and stunning deck. I love it so much. Oh my gosh, the art is just, the art speaks to my witchy soul. I love it. So this is the Earthly Souls and Spirits Oracle. Next up is a deck that wasn't really on my list, but I had one of the decks by this creator on my list for years again, and it is a Cheryl Yambach Rose deck, and it is art through the Starstream Oracle. So I believe the deck that I had on my list was the original deck that Cheryl Yambach Rose created, and it's a deck that is often sold in Glastonbury, and that's where I first saw this deck years and years and years ago, and I really wanted it, but it just wasn't in the budget at the time. And then there was another deck created, and then this deck, and it was when I was at Glastonbury this summer for my birthday that I saw this in the Chalicewell Gardens shop, and it just sung to me, and I knew I needed to get this deck. From the moment I started reading with it, it was a really special, profound deck. I love the art, of course, but the messages, again, really profound. Gaia needs you, act from your crown and heart. Really beautiful for working with Avalonian energies. It's something that obviously sort of speaks to me, feels very resonant. There's some imagery that's quite strange as well, and very ethereal and sort of out of this world, otherworldly, that's what I mean. But then also some that sort of speak to me of Mary Magdalene, and that's really interesting. So, because I do have a background in the Christian church and I still work with Jesus as personified deity as well as working with Morrigan, this is a deck that does speak to me through that, and I think it's a really beautiful deck to work with. I want to work with it more. So I've only worked with it a handful of times really since I picked this up, so this is one that I really want to work with more, but it just calls to me. It feels so aligned. Nothing is absolute, change is the only constant. Stunning. Choose a natural solution wherever possible. Call in protection. That's something else as well that I've been so called to be doing recently, and I think it could be because of the climate, because of what's going on in the world, but also because, you know, we moved house, everything seemed to happen for us in the second half of the year, and there was so much happening, and protection really was a massive thing that I started to deep dive back into in my craft, and it's something that I don't really get bored of. I love it. I know some magical practitioners really find it kind of boring, but I find it so interesting, and it's actually, I think, really important work. So it's an interesting message for the day. So this is art through the Starstream Oracle. Next up is the Mother Mary Oracle, and this is Protection, Miracles and Grace of the Holy Mother by Alana Fairchild. I also have the Mother Mary deck by Doreen Virtue, but for reasons due to the creator, that's not so much my favourite. But I do love the artwork in this one as well. Specifically, I think the artwork resonates so much using this deck and working with the Mother Mary as well. I was never Catholic, so working with the Mother Mary wasn't really something that happened when I was younger in my spiritual life, but it is something that really resonates because that energy of love and compassion through Christ and the stories, it just really does resonate for me very deeply. So this is a really spiritual, kind of profound experience working with this deck. And Alana's work is very much along these lines. You know, I really like the sort of channeled messages in Alana's decks, and it really does get you to think on a message. You know, I don't think Alana's decks are great for like a daily pull, but they're best for like a week or a month to really meditate and ponder on a theme. So Our Lady of Divine Passion, you're preparing to receive me, opening your heart and clearing away past shame and doubt. You have been asking for the divine light to be with you, and I tell you now, I am alive within you. Your wish to serve the world, to be blessed by my light so that you can assist others is granted. As you open your heart and mind to me, your every touch becomes my touch. Your loving gaze holds the light of my own eyes within it. My grace lives in you, flowing through you into the heart of the world. There is just so much love in this deck, and it's beautiful. The Kali deck wasn't a deck that I wanted to get for reasons that I feel that it's not really for me, but definitely this deck by Alana Fairchild is a deck that I feel is for me. And I previously had the Kuan Yin Oracle and the Isis Oracle. I think the Isis Oracle is beautiful, to be fair, and there are obviously parallels that are drawn between Isis and Mother Mary and Kuan Yin as well, and perhaps this is something I need to look into more as well, but there is that school of thought around Christianity being pulled from a lot of Egyptian mythology as well, so that's really interesting. I will just say this is artwork by Shiloh Sophia McLeod, because that's something I don't think I've ever said, and this artwork is so perfect and resonant and beautiful. So beautiful deck, definitely working with Jesus and that Christ consciousness. Mary sort of comes into it, and there'll be times when, you know, I really feel that presence, and it's really profound and beautiful. And sure, some people will watch this and think, what, how can you work with the Morrigan and with Jesus and with Mary? Like, how does that work? But this is my practice. I'm not telling you how to do anything for you, but this is what works for me. And, you know, I've experienced a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of change in my life, and a lot of love and comfort from these deities, and I do work with deities, so that is something that, you know, does mean something to me. So I would just say that if it's not for you, then it's not for you. You don't have to do what I do, and you don't have to agree with what I say. This is my experience, but I would just like to ask that any comments are respectful and that you just honour that I'm sharing my own personal gnosis and personal experience here. So yeah, but this is a really, really beautiful, profound deck to work with. I love it. Next up is the Witches of Legend Oracle deck by Annabelle Lewis. I love this deck. Wow, and I always think this is a deck that's quite fun to work with friends and with maybe children, maybe not children as young as my children, but maybe teenagers, because the stories are fantastic. So the guidebook goes into the stories of all of the goddesses featured within this deck. I love the artwork. This is a deck I backed on Kickstarter several years ago now, and when it arrived I was so thrilled because I was really starting to pine for it. I find the artwork so, so spectacular. There is Baba Yaga, Nick, Medea, Diana, Bridget. Oh, I have to show you Bridget. Stunning. Lilith, Kali, Hel, Sekhmet, Avalonian-inspired. This is a goddess I first learnt about when I was working with the Divine Feminine Oracle deck, which is a deck I absolutely loved for years. And Avalonian-inspired deity story really stuck with me. There's Morgan Le Fay from the Arthurian legends. And then Medusa. I was called to work for a very brief period of time with Medusa. It was more like a little experience than anything else. Freya, and then the Morrigan. And it is so, so interesting. But the first time I shuffled this deck, pulled out a card, it was the Morrigan. I think actually it fell out, but it was the only card that fell out, and it was just like, I got like proper chills, because I love that. Like, I think that's when you know that you're connected to a deck, and not only that, but that you know that what you're doing is right. You know, it's like, wow, and I'm getting the goosebumps now. I was just like, wow, it's just incredible. I know it sounds like such a small thing and such a trivial thing, but you know when it happens and you get those tingles, and it just feels so, oh. So I love this deck. It's not a deck I feel called to use every day, but I think it is a really, really beautiful deck, and I am so thrilled to have it, and it is definitely one of my favourites. And for specific readings, I think I would use this for others and for friends, and it will bring a layer of meaning. If you use it next to a tarot reading, it brings that other layer of meaning when you look at the figure, the deity, or the witch, specific witch, and the tale. Because I think when I did a little walkthrough of this, I was even interested that the Sea Witch, that story, actually when it's flipped on its head, it's really, really interesting. And you start to look at these witches that were labelled in popular stories as villains, when actually they're really not. They're just trying to call you out on your bullshit, you know, and actually trying to help you. I thought it was really, really interesting, and that's kind of like what the Morrigan does as well for me, kind of what the Morrigan sort of stands for. So yeah, love that. And finally, it's another Morrigan deck, and it is not the Oracle of the Morrigan, which I do love, which is by Morpheus Ravenna, but I tend to find that this deck is more resonant for me, and this is the Transformational Oracle of the Morrigan by Bella Sewell, and it's almost like it's got two suits. It has these red-backed cards with the crow feather, and these are sort of archetypes or epithets, I suppose you could say, of the Morrigan. So you've got the healer there, beautiful. And then you have these black ones, which are the moon phases and then other symbolism within the lore. So you've just got the full moon there. And you have some of the creatures that the Morrigan is associated with. So you have the wolf. The artwork is spectacular, of course. You have the cattle there. So you have to read a little bit into the lore to understand the significance of some of these things. That's something, you know, that I've been doing for years anyway. So it makes sense to me why there is a card for the heifer in this deck, and why there is a card for the enemy's head. So unless you work with Morrigan, unless you know a little bit about the lore, or if you're interested in getting into that as well, by all means, then, but some of it might not make so much sense unless you have a little bit of understanding or some context on which to work with this with. But you know, if that's something you want to learn about, by all means get this deck and work with it as you learn. I think it's a beautiful way to work with it as you learn. You can definitely do that. So it's got the elements and the seasons as well. Shield there. Beautiful, beautiful deck. This is such a glorious depiction as well, and this is depicting the meeting of the Dagda with the Morrigan, which happens the eve of Samhain, I believe, in the lore. Absolutely incredible. Love this deck. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that is the Transformational Oracle of the Morrigan. Really powerful, powerful deck in my collection. I love it so much. I have it in this bag here, which is actually belonging to the Divine Feminine Tarot. It lives in this for now. So that brings me to the end of my favourite Oracle decks for 2021. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed sharing these with you. They're such amazing decks and I'm so pleased to have them in my collection and to be able to work with them. It's been profound. So if you did enjoy the video, please do click the like button and share it with anyone who you think would find it interesting or helpful or fun. Also, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, I will leave my handles in the description box and on screen at the moment, so you can check those out if you'd like to. I also have a Buy Me a Coffee page if you'd like to donate a little bit for a coffee for me to show your appreciation. That would be so appreciated, but of course it is not an essential thing. Just being here, liking, subscribing, commenting is so valued and so appreciated. Thank you so much. If you've been enjoying my content but you've not yet subscribed, then please do think about subscribing because it really helps to support the channel. And while you're subscribing, don't forget to hit that bell notification because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. So with all that said, thank you again so much for joining me. I hope you stay well and safe. Just get some rest, rejuvenate, recoup, and get yourself feeling strong for the year ahead. So many blessings. I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.